Attempts to bring the Holocaust perpetrators to justice has been a long process that is still occurring today. Immediate post-war trials often centre around the Nuremberg trials in the International Military Tribunal. There were subsequent post-war trials throughout Europe, some in Canada, and as far as Australia. Recent trials of Holocaust perpetrators have seen elderly people stand trial for past crimes. The outcomes of these trials have varied across jurisdictions. According to the United States Holocaust Museum, the majority of those who assisted in the crimes of the Holocaust will never be brought to justice. The major Allied powers established the International Military Tribunal after the events that occurred during the Second World War. The tribunal had representatives from the United States, Britain, France, and the Soviet Union. A charter was decreed in London in August 1945 that set out the laws under which major Nazi war criminals would be put on trial at Nuremberg. Article 6 of the Charter stated that defendants could be charged with conspiring to commit crimes against humanity, war crimes, and crimes against peace. Article 6c states that the individuals could be tried for persecutions on racial or religious grounds. The trials at Nuremberg were held from 1945 to 46. According to Maris, crimes against humanity were constantly tangled in war crimes. Both in the indictment and trial, there was little effort to distinguish between the two. 24 Nazi diplomatic leaders were tried before the IMT in Nuremberg. 12 of those convicted were sentenced to death. Among them was Reich Marshal Hermann Göring, Hans Frank, Alfred Rosenberg, and Julius Streicher. Of the remaining 24, 3 were sentenced to life in prison, 4 to prison terms ranging 10 to 20 years, and the remaining 3 defendants were acquitted of all charges. However, the overwhelming majority of the post-1945 war crimes trials involved lower-level officials and functionalists. Rudolf Höss was the longest-serving Auschwitz commander. He was tried by the Polish Supreme National Tribunal in Warsaw in 1946 and sentenced to death by hanging at Auschwitz. According to forensics, Nuremberg prosecutors tried and convicted 161 defendants in the IMT and subsequent trials. Between December 1946 and April 1949, United States prosecutors tried 177 people and won convictions of 97 defendants, including leading physicians and Einsatzgruppen members, among others. Sadat contends that Nuremberg taught us to reconceptualize the notion of war and its worst consequences, as well as to reframe our responses to it. However, some perpetrators were able to escape. As Hollander explains, Gunter Lurie, a survivor, spoke of the different type of perpetrators, and some weren't Germans and may have found it easier to flee. Lurie states that the actual perpetrators acted out of varied motives. The men who carried out the mass shootings came from different parts of German society, and not all of them were German. Despite these efforts, many perpetrators of Nazi-era criminality have never been tried or punished. Interest in prosecuting Nazi crimes soon diminished during the Cold War. In 1979, the United States Attorney General established the Office of Special Investigations in the Justice Department Criminal Division. In its 31 years of operations, OSI successfully brought legal action against 108 participants in Nazi persecution. In Australia in 1990, a case was brought upon Ivan Polakovich for a mass killing in Ukraine ghetto in 1942. However, due to insufficient evidence, Polakovich was acquitted. The difficulty of time is a key issue when attempting to prosecute the perpetrators of the Holocaust. Although investigation efforts continue, any perpetrator still alive would be more than 90 years old. Some of the key people involved in the Holocaust were never brought to justice, either committed suicide like Hitler and Himmler, or able to escape like Joseph Mengele and Adolf Eichmann. Eichmann was eventually captured and stood trial in Israel for the crimes he committed during the Holocaust. Many defendants in West German courts were convicted of murder, more commonly manslaughter, of hundreds of thousands of people within extermination centres, and received sentences of usually less than 10 years. These lenient sentences and the relatively few death sentences handed down, perhaps when looked at individually, can be seen as successful attempts at justice. However, on a whole, in comparison to the millions of lives lost and those lives changed forever, could never be enough justice. The Holocaust survivors had and have to live with those memories forever. Trials and sentences may ease feelings towards individual perpetrators. However, justice for all the crimes committed throughout the Holocaust would be a much different process. To end, a quote from the sole surviving Nuremberg prosecutor. Many who oppose the strengthening of international law simply lack the imagination necessary for creating a more peaceful world.